So there was a point in time where I didn't talk about my faith at work because I thought it's politically incorrect. People are going to think I'm trying to like Bible thump them. But I sort of started to realize that I was hiding like a very important part of myself, which is no good, right? So I just got more honest. So instead of being like, oh, I hope that works out for you, if someone was sharing something with me, I'd be like, I'm going to pray about that for you. When people would ask me what I did on Sunday, I'd talk about the fact that I went to church, right? I also just started keeping a Bible on my desk. And that brought a lot of discussions. I kept it like right underneath my monitor. Sometimes it gets buried under papers because I can be kind of messy at work. But I will say this, there was a point in time I didn't want to do that because I knew it would come with accountability. And I didn't want people to be able to be like, Monica, you just acted like X or Y. And what's that on your desk? And I didn't want to be responsible for that, right? I have had moments like that where people are like, what about your Bible? And I'd be like, can you imagine me without it? Like, you've seen my temper.
We started on our knees, had no light. Then we found our way to church. God got our knees and said right. You pulled us out the dirt. Now we're walking in our purpose, not just shopping in vain. And calling our Holy Father, staying away from the lies, 'cause you taught us how to apply. We got a way you do it, yeah, you did it, and you did it. When the road got rough, you pulled us through it. You always do it, yeah, you did it, yeah. We got a way you do it, yeah. One color different by avenue. Let's get into it.
Welcome back to Different by Avenue. Today we are talking about a topic that'll feel a little too familiar to those who are trying to balance their ambition with their peace. We are talking about career versus contentment.
We have incredible Monica with us today to bring so much wisdom to the space. But before we get too far into it, let's get into our prayer.
Lord, thank you for the hands that work and the minds that dream, and for being the giver of every good and perfect gift.
Help us to find contentment where we are while having the courage to pursue the leadership roles you called us to. Help us to have eyes that see the perfect moments tucked into our regular messy lives, and teach us how to find Sabbath in the small things. Amen.
Amen. But we could talk for days about the struggles of navigating our professional avenues. I am Dee, and as a photographer, I know the constant shift between chasing the next big goal and staying content in the present season.
And I'm Bree. My happy place is opening my home, entertaining the people I love, and just hosting good company. But professionally, I'm in the thick of it with that 9-to-5 life where my timing is off, where there's currently no room for growth. So finding peace while feeling stuck is very real in my daily walk.
We are so excited to have Monica here with us. She is someone who truly understands the journey of navigating leadership, ambition, and purpose. Monica, welcome.
Hi, thank you.
First question, please tell us about yourself, who you are, what's going on, and then we'll kind of deep dive into your own chaos, your own wild avenue through career and contentment.
Chaos feels like the right word. A little bit about myself. Florida baby, grew up in Florida. I decided very early that I wanted to be a lawyer. I think in high school, I did like a debate class or a debate session, and it was just fun. And so I thought, this would be a good career for me. And I just kept going from there. Went to University of Miami undergrad, looking to get into law school, and then shot off to law school in Chicago. Honestly, didn't have the best guidance going into it. Just went to the best law school I got into and didn't think beyond that. So graduated with tons of student loan debt, which has been its own journey. And then I had a goal of living in New York and working in New York for a bit. I just, had this image in my mind of what it would be like to be in New York City. And so after law school, I found myself working at a big law firm in New York City. It was sort of, going into what's called big law was kind of like what everyone gets funneled into right after law school. It's kind of the easiest, lowest hanging fruit. The law firms come to you, they interview you at the law school, and you sort of just pick from the places that give you an offer. There were people who went on different career paths at that point, but they were kind of harder to identify and come by. This was kind of like being spoon fed to you. So did about 3.5 to 4 years at a law firm, and they're working primarily with one partner at the firm. And she ended up being nominated to be a federal judge. She invited me to be a clerk for her while she was on the bench in New York. And while I was in that role, I got an opportunity to see a lot of the prosecutors at work in the local prosecutor's office. And I thought that looked exhilarating. I thought it would be good for me. And then from there, I interviewed. I was lucky enough to land the role. I ended up doing 4 years at an office out in New York. And I would say like around there, I started to it was my life 24/7. All my family was in Florida. I had friends, I had a church community, but I really didn't make space for much more than work. And we can definitely talk about it more, but I kind of convinced myself that was like the right and okay thing to do because I felt that I was doing important work. I was trying to bring justice. I was trying to keep the community safe. I worked a lot. Most of my career has focused on violent crimes. So I was dealing with cases that had victims. So I told myself, like, the right thing to do is to live and breathe my job 24/7. And I did come to a place where I just needed more to be balanced against work. And I knew if I wasn't closer to family, that really wouldn't happen. So it was at a time that I was at the height of my career I was known I was known in the office. I was known by the judges. I had done some really important cases, and it was kind of like it was going to be a bit of a launching pad, but I just felt very pulled in a different direction to go back home. So I got to Miami and I thought, okay, this is where I'm going to be. This is my permanent landing spot. Because at the time I used to always say that, when I go back to Miami, I'll stay, right? I won't be leaving again. So I used to put off the return to Miami because I was like, I don't know if I'm ready to be permanently in one place. I want to do a little more exploring before that happens. Very quickly, I realized that like all the loose ends were not necessarily getting tied up for me. I thought everything would just kind of magically fall into place. But I really do think that like God still had more work to do on me in terms of my career. And it wasn't it wasn't so much about what work I would be doing and the type of work I would be doing. It was about the role I was going to let it play in my life. Bree can attest to the anxiety and the nerves and the stress I would often feel around work-related stuff because she was in Bible study with me. So she would get my prayer requests, and she was there when I'd like not slept for 24 hours because I was overworked on something. But there was a very eye-opening moment that happened for me, which there was a day I was worried about something at work. There was a date for a hearing that everyone had been expecting to move. And all of a sudden, it seemed like it wasn't going to move. And I became very anxious because I didn't feel prepared for it to go on the day that it was currently set for. And I reached out to a friend for prayer, and I was more anxious than I should have been. And my friend was like, "What's the worst that happens here?" And I told her I had to be really honest and do like a gut check. And I was like, I think the worst that happens here is that I look like an idiot in front of everybody. And it was a real kind of eye-opening moment for me in that my motivations somewhere along the way had started to focus too much on me not failing, had started to focus too much on me kind of proving that I deserved, I was worthy of the role that I was in, proving that I was capable. And I realized that like my identity had just gotten so wrapped up in like, this is my career and this is my job and this is what I do. And I had been thinking that it was okay because again, like I said, I did work that I felt was meaningful. And around that time, I just started really seeking God on rooting my identity more in him and my relationship with him. And I make no claims that I am perfect at this, but he showed me what the goal was, right? He gave me a better understanding of what the goal was. And that helps me kind of gut check myself sometimes and reset sometimes. And I started being really prayerful around finding opportunities to just focus on what I believe my career is about, which is service. Like, this is a service career. It's literally the public sector. It's public service. Let that be the goal. Let that be what is driving and motivating me, and let that be, what I go back to. And he did, in a way that was like unpleasant. Like, I kept finding like opportunities where like there were people that needed help on things, and I'd like raise my hand, not from like an overwork perspective, but from like just genuinely wanting to like assist that person. And it became, I became more focused on trying to be a meaningful contributor in my office for everyone, for my colleagues, for the girls working next to me, and less, wrapped up in, well, is someone going to think I'm stupid? Is someone going to think I'm not qualified? And he gave me a lot of opportunities for mentorship, which I'm really grateful for. I kind of started even like a little Bible study at work where I realized I had
Wow.
met other fellow believers, and I didn't have that in my prior job. I had not met a lot of other believers. And so I just kind of picked a time, and I was like, okay, on Wednesdays, I'm going to be in the office at this time, and we can have an hour for study and worship. If you're able to make it, you'll find me at my office. And that's how I did it for a bit. So then I get a curveball again, because I've kind of like had set into a rhythm in my office. I had moved to a new section. I had this little Bible study I had started up. I had gotten into a new apartment, and then an opportunity came along for me to come out to DC to do policy advising in DC, which is like from what I was doing, like just completely new muscles, completely new work. I had really started to focus more on family. I had really started to focus more on like my personal life and what I want to see for myself on that front in the future. And then he dropped this thing in my lap, and I was like, I don't know, this feels like I'm going backwards almost. This feels like I'm going to be there. The hours are probably going to be crazy. I'm going to be working around the clock. And I actually considered not taking it, even though a lot of people were like, that's insane. You should absolutely take this job. This isn't the kind of job you pass up. And I actually think the fact that I was open to the possibility of just like staying the course where I was and not taking the role kind of said to me that I was in the kind of place where I would be good in this role. And I don't know if I'm explaining myself on that well, but I think that DC is a place where people get very caught up in career climbing. They get very caught up in making the right impressions and meeting the right people, and they lose themselves in it a little bit. And I just wasn't at that place in my career. Like, I was very much at a place where like, I'm going to do my work. I'm going to do it well. I'm going to make good choices. And you can kind of take it or leave it. And you might like me, you might not like me, but as long as my conscience is clear on the way I'm doing my work, then I'm good. And I kind of felt like if I'm coming to it from that perspective, maybe I actually have something unique to bring to the table. So fast forward now, I've been here a year and a half. It's been a very tumultuous year for so many reasons. My whole life looked one way, and then like from literally 1 month to the next, because the opportunity came and needed to be taken quickly, looked vastly different than it had looked. And I'm not going to sit here and say that I sailed through it with grace and, peace at every moment, because I wasn't. I like to predict the future. And at many points throughout this year and a half, I haven't been able to, and it's been deeply frustrating. I'm going back to my old office, this time in a supervisor role, which I'm excited about because God has really placed on my heart mentorship. And it's kind of less glamorous than what I think people sometimes think like being successful is. But I really have enjoyed my opportunities to just kind of like help train people, help teach from what I've learned. So it's the brand new prosecutors who, most of them have not done this work before. And I'm excited to have an opportunity to help kind of set get their training wheels off. And where I go from there, I'm not sure. But I think that God's definitely helped me establish different priorities and be open to letting him kind of guide the flow of things instead of trying to control as much.
My
Yeah.
question for you is, during your career, Have you ever
Yeah.
felt content? Were you ever in a space where you felt like, okay, this is exactly where I'm supposed to be. This is the time. God got this part right.
I don't have the kind of brain that will ever say, this is exactly where I'm supposed to be. I have
I
the kind
agree.
of
I'm the
brain
same.
that's like, but what if? But like, maybe not. Like, because I trust God, but I'm like, maybe I got it wrong. Maybe I misunderstood. Now, in terms of contentment, what I will say is the most content I have been in my career is when I am, and it's not a single period, it's seasons. And it is undeniably those seasons when I am walking closely with God, because when I'm tapped into that, there is freedom. Because if we really like tap into what we believe, like we're Teflon, like we're untouchable, because like the most important battle that needs winning has been won, right? Like we know we have our value based in his love for us. And there is this like liberty, like in just being able to do your work without so much hanging on it, right? You don't feel like if you make a mistake, it says something about who you are. And so I think I've been the most content in my career when I'm getting that right, right? Like I'm spending enough time with God to like have my head in the right space and have the right perspective on things. And secondly, when I feel like I'm meaningfully contributing. And I've learned it doesn't have to be in like a really glamorous way. I'm very content being behind the scenes, but I do want to feel like my presence at the office is making a difference. I want to feel like I'm giving meaningful input. And so I've had that in different spurts and different places of my career, but usually when I start to feel dissatisfied, the very first thing I need to correct is, have I been spending enough time with God each day? Because there's definitely a difference in my day-to-day joy based on the answer to that question.
When was the pivot point in your career? Like you almost stated it exactly. You were up against a wall. You realized you were going in the wrong path, that you weren't, you weren't talking to God. And almost in your story, as you said, I started pray, I started, Bible study at work. And then look what
Yeah.
happened. And it was
Yeah.
almost like a picture perfect. Hey, if you start praying, you start talking to God, you start bringing him into every aspect of your life, all of a sudden an incredible opportunity and the next season like fell into your lap. Oh, how do you catch that? Right? That's how I have a struggle with
Hmm.
not immediately going, what am I doing wrong in my business? Not,
Hmm.
hey, let me go to God. Let me take this to God. So what did you do to see that in yourself? How did it smack you in the face? Because I'm waiting on the smack to go, dang, I should have taken
Yeah.
that to God and I didn't.
Yeah, I mean, I think the alarm bell for me. Why are you so
Oof.
stressed? Why are you so like?
Oof.
And by the way, for me, stressed equals grumpy. So like, why are you acting like that? Like, I don't think God would be super proud of you right now. Like, I don't think if someone learned you were doing a Bible study, they would think that jives with the way you conducted yourself today. I think that is the check. It's not necessarily like anything that's happening. It's internal. It's not external. It's internal. It's me realizing like this feeling does not feel like what God intends for me to walk in. So like, what's going on here? And at some point, I think he just opened my eyes to like this lie that like our circumstances are going to make us happy. And, we fall sometimes for this idea of like, oh yeah, but then when X happens, it'll all be good. Or when Y happens, or when I get to Z point, it'll all be good. And I feel like that's honestly a trick of the enemy to just like keep us in limbo and keep us from like being intentional and meaningful with the place that we are in our lives at the moment. That's the gut check for me, is when I'm like, this doesn't feel like someone who's redeemed by the Savior, right? Like this doesn't feel like the way that should
Yeah.
feel. So what's going on? Yeah.
Okay.
Brilliant way to put it.
Yes. I want you to add the little tidbit of how you started conversations about God at work. You being in a
Yes.
law office, how did you start
Yeah.
those conversations?
Yeah. Yeah. That was that. I started conversations at work about my faith intentionally. So there was a point in time where I didn't talk about my faith at work because I thought it's politically incorrect. People are going to think I'm trying to like Bible thump them. People think I'm, trying to proselytize here at work. I don't want to get in trouble or whatever. But I sort of started to realize that I was hiding like a very important part of myself, which is no good, right? So I just got more honest. So like people, instead of being like, oh, I hope that works out for you, if someone was sharing something with me, I'd be like, I'm going to pray about that for you. When people would ask me what I did on Sunday, I'd talk about the fact that I went to church, right? I also just started keeping a Bible on my desk. And that brought a lot of discussions. I kept it like right underneath my monitor. So a lot of people would see it and have their perception of a Christian as like, very stuck up, very reserved, not kind of a strong personality and uptight. And sometimes they didn't necessarily think, oh yeah, Monica fits that, caricature that I've written in my mind. But so people would ask about the Bible and I would always be like, hey man, like sometimes I'm not going to get through the day and the people around me are not going to want me unless I've spent like a little more time looking at what's in there. And it just started conversations. And the more I talked about it, the more I found people that were also believers. The more I talked about it and shared about what the role it played in my life, the more I just found other people that, also were believers.
Thank you, Mama. I was like, get that Bible on the desk part.
The Bible, you remember the
I
Bible on my
love
desk?
that.
I'll tell you one
Yes.
thing. There was a point, it's still on my desk now. Sometimes it gets buried under papers because I can be kind of messy at work. But I will say this, there was a point in time I didn't want to do that because I knew it would come with accountability. And I didn't want people to be able to be like, Monica, you just acted like X or Y. And what's that on your desk? And I didn't want to be responsible for that, right? I wanted to kind of be able to get that get out of jail free card. But honestly, and I have had moments like that where people are like, what about your Bible? And I'd be like, can you imagine me without it? Like, you've seen my temper. Like, picture me. I'm not pretending that I'm perfect, like, by any means, but like, picture what you'd be getting if that wasn't a part of, the whole picture.
I love that.
All right. I have one more question for you. I need your advice. I need your advice for anyone listening that's doing the 9 to 5. Yes, it pays the bills, but they still feel miles away from their calling. Like, what advice could you give them to help them find their peace where they are? What do you have for us?
I'm going to steal someone else's advice because someone said this to me when I was coming out to my current role. And my current position is one that I think people could easily like fall into delusions of grandeur with. Maybe you're just there to be the only person who's nice to the cleaning lady one day. Like maybe that's what God is sending you out to DC for. You don't know. Maybe he's sending you for something bigger, but maybe that's all he's sending you for. And so I think we get caught up in trying to write our stories. God's already writing them. We have an author. And again, I always want to be clear. I'm not perfect at this. I still get caught up all the time in trying to write my story. But if I'm trying to give advice to like someone else and myself, just remember to be present in the moment. Like God has something for us to do exactly where we are. He has someone for us to love on. He has someone for us to serve exactly where we are. And we shouldn't miss out on that because we're too busy waiting for like the next thing and figuring out how to get there. Our calling, we all have the same calling. Our calling is to be in relation with God and to help him love on his children. Like that is our calling, to share his word, to share his gospel. That is our calling. We can be in any role. Now, he may have a very specific career for some people and have a very specific professional calling for some people, but we all have like a baked in pre-existing calling. And if you can't find what the profession is that you should be on, try to tap back into that. Easier said than done because it might not feel the way you thought it would feel and it might not be what you wanted it to be. But talk to God about it and be honest with him about it. I'm not loving this. I kind of envision something else for myself. What do you have to say about that, God? I think there's a lot of value to honesty and prayer. I don't want people to think I'm doing things perfectly because I am so not that person. So like, I used to hear people give advice and like say things about literally things like what I just said. And I'd be like, man, if I was just like that girl, like if I could just tap into what she's tapped into. And I don't want anyone to hear me and think any of that. Cause like we are all just trying to figure it out from one moment to the next. And I think we sometimes are better at figuring out a problem than like walking in the solution. So I just want to be clear. I'm still trying to walk in the solution.
So as we look at the big picture here, just remember your worth is not tied to your productivity. A full woman becomes a better wife, a mom, and a better leader.
Work hard, pursue what God placed in your heart, but remember to stay anchored in his peace today.
We've been talking about how easy it is to climb the wrong ladder, stay stuck in a role that doesn't fit. Honestly, the same gap shows up in how small business owners present themselves in the world.
It really does. You can be walking in your true calling as an entrepreneur, but if your visuals look like an afterthought, people miss the value of what you're actually bringing to the table. That's why Dee's work at deegarone.com is such a game changer for small business leaders.
It's way more than just a quick session behind the lens. We partner with entrepreneurs to take the visual weight off your shoulders, mapping out high-end strategic branding that reflects the leader that you've actually become, not who you were 3 steps ago.
You don't have to keep settling for corporate, out-of-date headshots or trying to play small. It's time to match your visual presence to your actual impact.
If you're ready to step fully into your leadership lane, head over to deegaron.com to book your custom brand experience.
And that's deegarone.com. Stop hiding behind an old title and start building a visual legacy that owns your true calling. All right. TikTok
My favorite part.
time. All right.
Which one?
Every day you stay in the wrong career, you are teaching your brain that comfort means more than freedom. That's how people end up 10 years older, 10 pounds heavier, and wondering where their inner fire went. That fire is still there, but you suppress it for so long, it's just a flickering spark. I'm living proof. I kept myself trapped in a miserable career for years. I gained 60 pounds, was depressed, had a drinking problem, cost me $250,000. My inner fire, confidence, out the window. Then one day I just had enough because I knew I had more to offer the world. I stopped tolerating and got back in the driver's seat of my life. And I started over at age 41 with only 2 suitcases to my name. And ever since then, my life has been exponentially better in every way because I've been doing it on my terms. And I created this chapter by design, not by default.
Well, ladies, what did you think about that TikTok? A little abrasive, but
No, but it's exactly what we're talking about. I think that the definition of contentment needs to be a little bit more clean cut because there's a difference between confidence and contentment. Like you can have contentment without confidence or confidence without contentment. It's understanding that your career path, it does not have to be profound. I think Monica said almost exactly the same thing. It does not need to be this wild, epic law career that is, taking you all over the country. It could be you're meant to stay local and have your focus be on something way more. It sounds way smaller than it is in reality because God has bigger plans. So to be content in I am supposed to be here is wildly different than confident in what could potentially be the wrong place. You could be content in the wrong place and have the lack of confidence that is stressing you, is bringing you down. And yeah, you can start over. This may not be the spot you're in. Having the delusion that I'm content, I'm okay here, but it's actually bringing you down. It's actually weighing on you, but you're just trying to force contentment. Did I say that right?
Yeah.
I think so. You are talking about basically not forcing, but okay. So then my question to that is, and I know Monica's mentioned this for you, Dee, how would you know that, okay, something's not right? What's your little
Oh, I got
thermometer?
smacked in the face by God. He will correct me pretty darn fast. But if you're not paying attention, it may feel like, well, what am I doing wrong? I've been working so hard at this, or I've been trying to get this big deal, or I've been trying to get this big client, and then all of a sudden you're like, major leg injury. Nope. Sit your butt down.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I hear you. Dang it. It's not what I wanted. But no. For me, it's understanding that God will straight up put you in your place when it is, if that's what you ask. Because I do need the smack. I need the straight up, like, tell me what I'm doing wrong. Close that door. And I frequently pray for, if I'm doing this wrong, if I'm not supposed to be here, if this is the wrong client, the wrong path, the wrong niche, tell me now. And so, but I need the door to slam in my face, or else I'll go, but it's still unlocked. This is still, I can make this work. It's fine. I'm gonna climb through the window instead. I still see, like, for me, it's frequent being smacked upside the head that gets me. That might not be the way everyone else gets their message from God, but for me, it's yeah. I'm sit down, realize you were meant to be here for whatever reason. Relax, take it easy, sit down. I'll show you why you're here. Give me time.
I think we've hit on it a couple times. You just said something, Dee, about it may not be this big job or this big glamorous career. And it reminded me, like, when we look at like Jesus and his teachings and what he taught us about like how to do and how to live our lives, they were very focused on like how we can interact with just the person standing beside us. And one-on-one, right, in a very small space. And at the time, like, the people he was preaching to, like, they were looking for him to come in and like give them political power again and like completely bring them to a new place than what they as a people were in at the moment. And he was like, here's how to be kind to your neighbor. And shame on us if we dismiss that, right? Like, shame on us if we pay more to, well, why don't I have this giant thing and this, legacy to slap my name on? That really wasn't his concern. His concern was, how can I teach my children to love on the person next to them? And so I think it might not seem glamorous to us, but it seemed to be his price. So we have to try to tap into that.
Beautifully said. I think that's it. Episode
Yes.
25. Monica, thank you so much for coming and for sharing your journey and your wisdom with us today.
I was nervous.
Thank you for hanging out. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for encouraging me.
Of course.
I just want to say, please, everyone hit that subscribe button and tune in next week for episode. It's those expensive gifts and expectations, getting real about the rules of gift giving and setting those realistic expectations.
Follow us on all platforms at Different by Avenue. Drop a comment letting us know about your favorite episode so far. We're more than halfway through the year, which is wild to me. Let us know which one hits home for you, and we will see you next week.
Bye.
Bye!
Another day, another walk, keeping faith in the stride. No matter where the avenue goes, he's the one to always provide. From the dirt to the grace, you gotta keep the faith. Trust the spirit and the truth. Yeah. Because God will never lose. See you next time. We got a way you do it. Yeah, you did it. Yeah, you did it. When the road got rough, you pulled up to it. You always you it. Yeah, you did it. Yeah, we got a way you do it. Yeah. It's on a different by avenue.